there are those moments you have in your life where you literally go, holy. We uncover on film the money pipeline, the agrochemical companies to the universities. They're basically buying and paying for the best science money can buy. And then they build curriculum around that science. And then the lawmakers build laws based around that science as well. Think about this. You create the disease and then you sell the cure. So you've effectively created a closed loop economy. We don't want to be the parent that looks at our kids and says, I'm sorry. I will be the parent and you will be that parent that looks at your kids and said, hey, we did something.
I have some massive Vampire Diary fans on my team. What was your favorite memory of that time?
So what's wild is...
Ian, welcome to the podcast, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, brother.
You have the most badass last name. I've never told you this before, but it's such a strong, mighty last name. Has anyone ever told you that
It's
before?
like Schwarzenegger. It's not as big as Schwarzenegger, but Somerhalder.
It's powerful, man. It's like ancient Prussian. What's the origin of the name? Have you ever looked into the history?
It's Swiss.
Of it?
It's Swiss German. It's Swiss German. But dude, you want to hear something wild?
Yeah, tell me.
I don't know if it's actually my name.
What? Okay, so we have to go into this. What's
the
the
2-second version is when my beloved grandmother passed in '99. Everything was very secretive. So my cousin started dialing into what the name of this origin name is, blah 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 blah, and my dad remembers a man coming to their house. They lived out in rural Louisiana. You know, I'm from middle of nowhere in Louisiana. Apparently in 1889, and this is, I think this is what happened. In 1889, a guy with the last name of Hull, he was a big businessman, blue blood Brit guy. Mm-hmm. The guy owned 5% of the GDP of Louisiana, had an affair with a woman. And back then, when you made mistakes, you just covered him up and paid for him. The story is that he paid a German immigrant, Mr. Somerhalder, one of his German immigrants, to wed this woman and give the baby the name.
Wow.
And so his name was Harry Hull. Hull, very British.
Yeah.
And so it's wild, dude. When we go back and look at our genealogy from a DNA perspective, you don't see that Swiss German DNA.
Interesting.
You see British, and then my mom's side's Irish. So my dad is half French, half English. My mom is half Irish, half Choctaw Native.
Wow.
So I grew up, my mom's family, very indigenous. I'm talking my great grandfather was 6'2", long braids, very Choctaw, big flat forehead, not a stitch of body hair, beautiful mahogany. He was a native. Mm-hmm. So it's wild. I need to dive into that a little bit more. But
yeah,
when we go, I've always associated so much with this name. It's like my name, but is it my blood?
Right.
But we spend a lot of time. We love going to Switzerland, and that name is everywhere. So
interesting.
It makes me feel good.
Yeah. Well, and it's what's the identity? Is it the blood, or is it the way you were raised and all of that meaning of the name? But what was it like growing up in Louisiana, in the sticks, in the country?
Unbelievable, man. People, listen, there are some numbers that need to flip in Louisiana. Louisiana has the second lowest education and one of the highest pollution, right? I know you could flip those numbers. And at one point there was a very small group of younger people, early 40s. They were called the New Guard. I was sort of being groomed to go run that state, and which would have been this last election cycle, which the numbers showed probably would have happened in a gubernatorial election, just from a numbers perspective.
Yeah.
I'm glad we didn't do that.
Do you think, I see you in the future running, getting into politics more. Do you think you'd ever would do that?
I wouldn't do it, because now that's what I learned. You and I were just talking about offline. We can do more in this space than we can do it inside. But typically you want to change things from the inside out. But from this perspective, you can change things from the outside in, because growing up in Louisiana, people don't realize how much culture is there. they look at these super low educational rates and sort of the sort of backwoods politics that happens there. But what in reality is they're building some robust economies. There is an enormous amount of culture. It is a beautiful down there. It's a great life. So for me, growing up in Louisiana with a mother who was half indigenous, and her father was a farmer, and these were farmers. That's why when I retire out of all of this, I will go back to my roots and just becoming a farmer. And then at that point, I'll be whatever, 6, 8, 10 generations on both sides. So I had a half indigenous mother who was a farmer to the core, and then a father who was a bayou man. I mean, it's like as Cajun as it gets, French and English. So I grew up in the 80s. My mom studied Eastern medicine. She was a massage therapist. So I grew up with all of these herbs and things that no one in the early 80s, especially we were a super poor family in Louisiana. My mom, I was like, snorting algae and stuff, before class. She's like, don't tell your friends you're doing this.
Yeah. Right.
But my brain was just my brain was just on fire at all times. And so I got to grow up with that. And then on the other side, my father was all about the ecosystem. So, when you have parents that teach you from the ground up, the delicate balance of your involvement in the natural surroundings, you are not separate. You are the exact same biological process.
Yeah.
And so the health of the earth is directly related to the health of a person. And my dad taught me about ecosystem wise, you live in these really small, very fragile ecosystems, which are the marshes and bayous and wetlands. If you take more than you give back, there's a huge imbalance. And the only one who suffers is us.
Yeah.
The fisheries suffer, all this stuff. So we didn't have any money, but we lived off of the land. Everything that came out of the sky, the water, the land. So you had that connection.
Yeah.
Cut too many years later, we now are starting to realize we are the exact same biological process,
Yeah, so true. And we'll get into ecosystems and farming today. One thing before I move on is the Ancestry bit. Did you ever do like a Ancestry or 23andMe or anything like that and looked at?
Yeah, so we have, and we're redoing everything now. We're going to redo it all and really dive in. And, when you look at a lot of the DNA and you look at a lot of the, let's call it predisposition to disease in this planet, we all have them built into our DNA.
Right.
But what we've done is degraded our soil and our ecosystems to such a state that we're degrading our own health. And what's so amazing about this, and why I'm so excited to talk to you about this, is we found a way to heal them both. One through regeneration, one through absorption.
Yeah.
And we are about to build robust $100 billion a year agricultural economy. And with the absorption company, a robust shift in a supplement and highly unregulated supplement industry that right now is a $55 billion a year industry. And you would tell me, don't quote me on it, but I think by 2032, it's going to be a $77 billion a year industry. Dude, Doc, we just created the most disruptive thing in that whole category.
Yeah. You know what just struck me now is that, and shame on me for not getting it sooner, is like this through line in your passions is the gut microbiome and absorption on a bioavailability on a human level, but then also on a planetary level. And like you said, we're part of this, as above, so below. Did you logically think through this, or is this just that authentic to what your ethos?
No, dude, my mom taught me this when I was 8 years old. So if you think about it, when people say, well, okay, break this down for me. What are you talking about? We're the same biological process. Actually, got to work with Deepak Chopra almost 20 years ago on this, which is really amazing. Remember when he used to do Sages and Scientists in La Jolla?
Yeah.
I got to speak at that. And that's where I met Dr. Alan Savory. That's where I met Alan Savory.
Amazing.
The grandfather of soil, right?
Right, right.
Well, when I was speaking at Sages and Scientists, which for anyone who didn't, it was basically like a tiny TED. It was like 400 people, the foremost like sages and scientists of the world that Deepak Chopra brought together with this organization. And dude, the guy who went up before me for me to give my 20-minute basically TED talk, Sages and Scientists talk, was one of the guys that won the Nobel Prize for inventing the MRI. Like, I mean, these are the brightest, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? But so one of the things that my mom taught me, and I learned from my mom and my grandfather many years ago, was when I talk about the same biological process, think about this. The health of the human body is directly, and you know this, you can quote me, I mean, you can change any of this. You're the doctor here, not me. But the health of the human body is directly related to the health of the gut microbiome. The health of soil and its ability to grow food and sequester carbon is directly, and I state this boldly, directly related to the health of the microbiome of that soil. Mm-hmm. Our gut is living. The soil is living. When you take all of that away, when you till the soil and you break up all those fungal networks and all those microorganism networks. And then in the human body, when you put artificial sweeteners and chlorine from drinking water and all these gut disruptors, you decrease the gut microbiome, and you take away that organism's ability to be healthy. Mm-hmm. So these are these most unbelievable intersection of nature that makes you realize we are not separate. We're the same. And so whatever you do to the environment, you do to yourself. And then whatever you do to yourself, you do to the environment, because happy, healthy people build happy, healthy societies by making happy, healthy choices, but you have to be able to offer them those choices.
Yeah. And then I think of the climate change and the dysregulation of the environment, and how you talk about that from a macro level. On a micro level, that same dysregulation is happening in the form of chronic inflammation. Like, there's planetary inflammation, if you will, and there's physiological inflammation. And it all, like you're saying, it begins with the gut microbiome and its connection to the soil microbiome. So it seems like, and I didn't realize this knowing you, is that your passion for the earth and the soil goes way, way back. And we're even talking about generations of your family. So this is something that's a deep, long knowing for you.
100%. And then on the medicinal sort of supplement nutrition side, came from my mom when I was an itty bitty tiny kid. And, you know, for a poor family in the early 80s in Louisiana, you know, you have this, my mom was just like, she's just this stunning woman, practicing Eastern medicine. You know, she didn't have a college degree. Initially, she was a teacher's aide at a mental institution, but she got to interact with all of these young people who were suffering from a tremendous amount of, you know, it's a state hospital, suffering from a tremendous amount of mental and physical, let's call them handicaps. And she wanted to make a difference. Now, she didn't have any money or an education to do it, but she started doing it through massage, which was bringing people a little bit closer together with their bodies, and then starting to use aromatherapy on them. And so my mom was this beautiful woman who in the early 80s in Louisiana was starting to implement aromatherapy into practice of therapeutic practices, which no one was doing. Like no one, period, end of story. I remember John Goodman was one of her clients, and he was this big, giant Hollywood actor guy. I mean, John Goodman's the man. But he's not the healthiest man in the world. But he's since had that amazing journey and shift. But like, yeah, dude, this has been since the beginning. And that's why coming off, you know, I left acting 6 years ago. The only thing that provided, you know, a sustainable financial future for my family, I walked away from. So my wife walked away from her career 10 years ago to become an incredible designer. And she's basically created what ended up becoming the sustainable model for a closed loop economy within luxury jewelry by using recycled gold and sustainably sourced gems, and then like changed the industry. Much so like we got to do with Common Ground or Kiss the Ground. Doc,
Yeah.
when we launched Kiss the Ground, there was about 5 million acres of organic, but that took a half a century to create. We're going to announce next week 50 million acres of regenerative agriculture is transitioning in different layer and levels and tiers, but it's all transitioning halfway up to our initial goal of 100 million acres, because that's the tipping point.
Got it.
And then
go ahead.
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go
No,
on.
you go ahead.
I was going to say, for people that they're hearing us talk about this, what does that mean? Like, what's shifted? Where is the soil at versus where are we shifting it to?
So this is the cool thing. In layman's terms, there's a lot of doom and gloom out there. We have bought into this idea that it's doom and gloom from a health perspective, from a climate perspective. I'm here to tell you the future is actually really bright. Like, get your sunglasses kind of bright, because we're about to heal the soil, which we're so divided. Soil is our only common ground.
Mm-hmm.
We're about to balance our climate. We're going to build robust $100 billion a year carbon capture agricultural food economy just in this country alone. And then we're going to show you how the one thing that in this crazy unregulated system that we've built called the supplement industry or the nutrition business, that you've been sold a lie, unfortunately. And I say that not to sound incendiary or, but 84% of the stuff that you put in your body, supplements, they're not absorbed.
Mm-hmm.
And so what Nikki and I learned and realized about, I started working on this 10 years ago, that people were spending billions of dollars on supplements that didn't work. And that didn't sit right with us. We were like, ruh-roh, not good. Especially coming from poor families. We came from extremely humble beginnings. So to think of my mom working 3 jobs and to think of other moms working 3 jobs, dads grinding it like I do. People think, it's this like hoity-toity. I mean, dude, I did 10 flights last week.
Oh my gosh.
10. So I'm grinding, trying to bring this to the world, but also to provide for my family, and just like everyone else. But we wanted to change that. And we wanted to build something that, whether you're a mom or a college student or a C-suite executive or a surgeon or a pilot or a baggage handler, because I live in airports, like whatever that course of life you're on, I know how hard it is out there. I know when you walk into a convenience store or a grocery store, how many chemicals are marketed to you with fancy labels and names and colors and price tags, and it's poisoning us. And we wanted to create something. That's why it's called the Absorption Company.
Mm-hmm.
It's simple.
Yeah.
You absorb this.
It's so talking about, we'll talk, I like the sort of duality of this. We could talk about the gut microbiome and the soil microbiome. Talking about the soil microbiome for a second, what, in your research and immersion in this world, what are the biggest assaulters to the soil microbiome? I mean, how did we get here and the destruction of it?
Well, the agrochemical companies, the agrochemical companies have really wreaked havoc on our system. For the last 75 years, since post-World War II, we took all the munitions and stuff that we were fighting the enemy overseas and brought it home to fight the enemy on the farm. One of the greatest assaulters is tillage. Where do you think the Dust Bowl came from, right? And so we now all of a sudden have Dust Bowl 2.0, which is kind of like unacceptable. We're so far down the road. Like Elon Musk sent a Tesla Roadster to Mars. Like, we have enormous abilities. How are we destroying the one planet we have to live on? It goes back to the old Carl Sagan, the pale blue dot. I'm sure you read that. That image from 1994 is so powerful. So assaulters are agrochemicals, but tillage. And what's so wild about tilling is we're so used to seeing that. Well, what people I don't think realize is when you till soil, you release carbon.
Mm.
That's the craziest thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when we stop doing that and we start implementing planned grazing methods and using cover crops to protect that soil, fix the nitrogen naturally using legumes and stuff to fix that nitrogen back into the soil, then all of a sudden that soil's protected. It doesn't run away. It has enormous ability to hold water, nutrients, getting prepared for the next crop, and sequester enormous amounts of carbon. These are really big scalable components. And that's why I think it's such a positive thing. We can build robust economies. We can balance our climate. We can jack human health. And as you know, Doc, when we jack human health, what's going to come down precipitously? Human healthcare costs. So we're talking about injecting 50 to 80 billion back into middle America. Well, that's going to be the reindustrialization of middle America. This is amazing stuff. People are going to have more money to spend on things. And once they start paying more taxes, just because their income's going up, which they'll happily do, school districts are going to get better. Water districts are going to get better. After school programs are going to get implemented. They're going to buy better food. Nutrient density is going to become it's going to be like standard. You know, when you buy a car, there's all these like standard features and then the premium features. Nutrient dense food is just going to become a standard feature in our agricultural system. Well, now people are going to start feeling better. So they're going to start taking more stock in how they feel. So they're not going to be wanting to just shove chemicals and sweet, funky things into their systems. Their diets are going to get better. And that's where we come in and we just realize, like, listen, you are all grinding yourselves to the bone. You don't have time to research all this stuff. That's what we do. Yeah. Now, I'm not a scientist. I leave that all to the scientists, but we knew we needed to tell a better story and provide better products for people so that they could go out and do the things in the world that they want to do, feeling good about themselves. And it's like, you know, when you feel good, you be good, you do good, you act good. I know that's wildly grammatically incorrect, but it sends it home, which is like, oh, geez, look at this. This is farm life right here, man. But you know what I mean? Like, that's what's so powerful about this. And that's why we're so excited about this moment. And listen, man, I've never been more tired in my life, but I couldn't do what I do if I hadn't
didn't
built
have a passion
this
for
company.
it. Yeah.
And I didn't, you know.
Are there naysayers? I mean, I know there are naysayers to regenerative ag. Like you said, this should and could bring so many people together, but then there's people that are contrarians within every space, and they'll say things like, well, regenerative ag isn't scalable. It's not something, and they are pushing, they're saying this is why we need chemicals, this is why we need conventional farming. I know that voice is shrinking because it really doesn't hold water, but like, what do you think of people that still say that in this day and age, that regenerative ag isn't the future?
It's shrinking. Their voices are shrinking. They're only going to be able to hold on so long. Because at the end of the day, and I know this is kind of a family show, but like, money talks, bullshit walks. You tell a family, you tell a farmer that they can make more money, they're going to do it. And they can feel better and they can be safer and healthier. They don't have to go to a bank every month and grovel, or every year and grovel for high interest loans and crop insurance. There's just, it's not gonna happen.
And so much of this, right? I mean, and I'd love for you to maybe just talk about it, because I haven't at length been able to talk about it until now. Is this, so much of this is manipulated, because people, the judgment of this, the way that things are at, is they'll say, well, it's capitalism that's ruined farming, and you could make the argument it's a version of capitalism, but it's more corporatism, corporatocracy, or crony capitalism, because doesn't it involve government subsidies to certain monocrops that's manipulating what farmers are even doing? Like, they're incentivized to go to GMO corn and wheat and soy. What's your take on all of that sort of manipulation of the farming and the free market?
They're manipulating, well, there is no really free market. They're manipulating that market to, listen, we uncover on film, what we realized was this was the big aha moment. That's why on April 22nd, so we're doing this big global watch party, right? And I'm so grateful to Jeff Bezos and his entire team for sucking up these 3 films that we put our lives into and distributing them to reach 1 billion people globally, right? So I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's actually terrifying, but this was the big aha moment. I just got chills thinking about it because, so basically, dude, we shoot this film and there are those moments you have in your life where you literally go, holy, what? We uncover on film, how Monsanto, however you want to pronounce it, has been secretly microfinancing a very unique system. I can't say all publicly, but a very large percentage of the agricultural university curriculum in this country for 40 years.
Wow.
We uncover on film the money pipeline, the agrochemical companies to the universities. They're basically buying and paying for the best science money can buy. And then they build curriculum around that science. And then the lawmakers build laws based around that science as well. This is how we've gotten to a fat, sick, unhealthy, unhappy society.
Yeah.
That, you've got companies that produce the chemicals that create the disease that are also owned by pharmaceutical companies that produce the single cure for that particular disease. So it's amazing. It's brilliant, by the way. Hey, kudos to you guys. It's going to slow way down. We're going to put a stop to it. But think about this. You create the disease and then you sell the cure. So you've effectively created a closed loop economy at mass that uses U.S. taxpayer dollars to fund all of that insurance money. People don't realize that. They think insurance companies get all of their money from premiums. No, man. They get it from the U.S. government.
Yeah.
Our taxpayers' dollars. So how and why? I had a question. A kid asked me this. They said, if you had the money, because we were talking about Amazon and how amazing it is. And this kid said, if you had Jeff Bezos' money, what would you do? And I said, well, here's what I'd do. I would build a hospital system that has integrated food and nutrition into the hospital system. Now, it would take tens of billions of dollars to do now, but if you have hundreds of billions, I'm sure you could do it. Our hospital systems and our doctors are not trained on what nutrition does for the body. It's the weirdest thing. And that's why we're the sickest developed nation in the world. That's why we started the Absorption company.
Yeah.
They're like, wait a minute. People are only sick because they're not getting the things they need. Not only is our food and our food system degraded, so we've lost 60% of our nutrients in our food. 60. Doc, think about that. But what is the other baseline that we're looking at? We've also, since the end of World War II, we've lost 60% of our soil. So you see the hockey stick, you're like, oh, 60% of the soil is gone, now 60% of the nutrition. There's a reason those numbers are aligned, right? So how are we a developed nation and we're this sick and this unhealthy? And that's what we set out to do, man. We're like, all right, let's dive into the science. We have this absorption technology. We have regenerative technology, which is not even technology, it's ancient wisdom. We're going to fuse these two together to build effectively what is about to become the fastest, most robust shift in our agricultural food system, in our nutritional food system, and our supplement system ever done and created. Because, as you know, the supplement industry is wildly unregulated. 3.6, or let's say 4% of companies third-party test, which is insane.
Yeah.
So we just said, let's put a stop to it. Here we go. And then we ramped it up. And now, listen, you and I talked about that. listen, would I do this again like this? I can't say I would. I would never say, let's build $2 billion companies, raise 2 kids, and launch 2 films while being in production on a third in 10 countries on top of a 110 flight a year schedule. I wouldn't do that again.
Yeah.
It's pretty widely known. I make whiskey and I make vitamins. To me, life's about balance. And I built the first, I'm building the first truly regenerative spirits company in the world, and the highest absorbable supplement company in the world, while launching the single most important comprehensive pieces of media on how to balance our climate and basically build $1 trillion carbon capture food economy.
Yeah.
That is like a triangle of hope for the future, but it's not just hope, it's action.
Yeah. Are you nervous? You mentioned these things you're uncovering in the film, and the film we're talking about, it's called Common Ground, right? That's the name of the film. Yeah. Yep. Are you nervous about this stuff coming out, the pushback you're going to get, sort of the from the industries that you're disrupting?
It's a great question. If this was 10, 12 years ago, I would say yes. But there are, I want to say, and don't quote me on it, I think there's like 14,000 class action lawsuits against Monsanto. Mm-hmm. So this isn't something you can't find on Google. It's just never been, it's just never been aggregated before,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so like, you got guys like Gabe Brown, my dear brother and mentor, Gabe Brown, who's a conservative farmer up in North Dakota. And you have Rick Clark, who's a conservative farmer in Western Indiana, where actually I need to call him when I leave here. He just sent me a picture of our regenerative organic rye that's growing in his fields that I'm going to turn into incredible whiskey. These guys are my mentors. Alejandro Carrillo down in the Chihuahuan desert. Their wisdom is so robust and unique, but it's going to help cause a sea change of the greatest shift in agriculture in the world. And Rick Clark went to testify in Congress for us. Mm-hmm. And he walked into that congressional testimony in that chamber and he said, hey, listen, I'm a conservative farmer from Western Indiana, man, and I'm here to tell you the system is broken. And you've allowed that system to be broken. And they're like, well, please, elaborate, Mr. Clark. He says, well, I have a family farm, and I save about 2 million acres a year, $2 million a year. This is a farmer, dude. Mm-hmm. $2 million? That is a lot of cash. And they called, they're like, bullshit. How? And he goes, well, I don't use pesticides. I don't use fungicides. I don't use herbicides, and I don't use fertilizer. And I use a lot less diesel distributing all that stuff. And they went, and it was silent in that congressional chamber. You have a white male telling this chamber what you're doing is wrong. Mm-hmm. And I said this to one of the highest ranking members of the U.S. Congress, who will go unnamed right now, really, literally like one of the highest ranking. And I said, what's so funny? I spend so much time in D.C. and what I learned is the Republican Party is owned and controlled by the agrochemical companies, and the Democratic Party is owned and controlled by pharmaceutical companies. I said, sir, that is not good for America. That is not okay. So when we can start to strip down these elements and the grass, the tendrils that they have into these systems, we're going to start rebuilding the United States. And it is a really unbelievable thing to think about and know that your kids and my kids and everyone else's kids are going to be okay. Because, Rebecca Tickell said this, and I get teary-eyed thinking about it. But I will not be that parent. We don't want to be the parent that looks at our kids and says, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. I will be the parent, and you will be that parent that looks at your kids and said, hey, we did something and it worked, and it's still working, and it's going to work. It's just changed the course of history, and your life and your future and your kids are all going to be safe.
Yeah.
How amazing is that?
It's amazing. And isn't it, like you said, you touched on this, and I think it deserves repeating, is that a lot of what we call regenerative ag, regenerative farming, these are ancestral, indigenous. This is the way that our ancestors did farming. But it's whenever man mistakes himself or thinks he's God, that we divorce ourselves from nature, that we pay a price for it. We have these unintended and intended consequences that we pay for on many different levels. So can you talk about some of the main things that excite you with regenerative ag that is happening now? More and more acres are doing farming this way.
Dude, it's so wild. We move the needle so fast and so quickly with Kiss the Ground. 50 million acres are transitioning, up to 100 million acres, which we think we can get to by the end of the year. 100 million acres is the tipping point. It's about 10% of the farmland in America. That's 1 in 10 calories that you're eating come from regenerative ag. That's 1 in 10 farmers who are at those gas stations and truck stops and feed stores and all talking about this. That's also 1 in 10 farmers who are patting the hell out of their pockets. And those communities are growing, right? Because of course, all the amazing positive cascade that comes from smaller communities making more money. Mm-hmm. That's one of the biggest ones. 50 million acres are transitioning, and a lot of it's already transitioned. This is huge. So once you get big companies and small communities transitioning into regenerative ag, which they're already doing, that positive cascade builds and builds and builds and builds. And that's how we're going to build a robust America. And this is what, taking this film to, listen, Kiss the Ground was seen by the head of the USDA, who took it to the Secretary of Ag, who took it to McConnell, who took it to Biden. I can't say directly only because of our film, but magically that September, big story came out. The US government released $20 billion from the IRA for soil regeneration. Dr. Wilcole, we got $20 billion from Republicans and Democrats for soil regeneration. Now, mind you, it's $1 trillion fight, but 20 billion is a lot of cash.
Yeah.
That was just the start, man. So think about what we're going to do right now. Mm-hmm. And we are doing it in the fields. Regeneration is not just sustainable. Sustainability is, maintaining the status quo. What people don't realize is like, people say to me, what the hell is this thing called regenerative agriculture? Why should I care? Mm-hmm. Super simple. It's just the use of planned grazing methods and using living, growing plants, agriculture at scale, to sequester enormous amounts of carbon. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of the carbon we put up there, we can put back in the ground. Mm-hmm. And now when we do that, you feed all the little vital microorganisms in that soil. Have healthier soil, healthier plant, healthier people, healthier planet. We're talking about right now as we speak, we're seeing the transition because farmers, not just white male farmers, indigenous cultures of all colors are coming together, because what people don't realize is the horrible components of what slavery was. They didn't know how to build a massive agricultural economy. They went and stole people who did. Mm-hmm. The African indigenous cultures knew so much more about agriculture than we did.
Yeah.
That's why they brought them over here against their will, to use the amazing, unbelievable information that they knew as indigenous peoples. That is coming back around, right?
Yeah.
And and we know, and this is another big thing we're seeing right now, which is why we're so excited, because I'm going to start injecting a lot of the Absorption company into these communities. Black and brown communities are hit the most, with the most unhealthy food. They pump this in there. They're food deserts, right?
Yeah.
As we start to shift this out of these black and brown communities, and regenerative agriculture starts to take a hold, those communities are going to thrive again. Because remember, in 1930-ish, there were 1 million black farmers in the US who were so successful. There's 50,000 now.
Wow.
That's an unacceptable number.
Right.
So what's amazing is you're going to see these these communities start to reshape and shift their own destiny. A lot of the indigenous reservations of the United States, the native reservations, are about to become these massive carbon sequestering, robust agricultural economies. I'm talking, dude, you think about it. Like, I make whiskey. I don't know. What am I doing? Why would I have it? I'm so used to having, I usually have a box of Absorption and a box of, and a bottle of whiskey. But like, I make this regenerative whiskey down in Statesville, North Carolina with my dear brother, Pete Barger. And those grains come within 5 to 20 miles of the distillery. But I use grain, a lot of it. In this country, there's 200 million grain acres, production acres, right?
Mm-hmm.
Regenerative ag saves about $400 an acre, up to. You multiply 200 million times $400, it's $80 billion that we're going to start injecting into Middle America. Because right now it's being sent to all these foreign countries.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, we're not talking about Wall Street. We're not talking about building Wall Street. We're talking about building Main Street.
Yeah. The farms,
How
the forgotten
amazing.
America.
Yeah, but it's about to not be. You know, it's so funny, and a lot of my like coastal elite friends always, they bitch at me for calling them out on air like this. But you hear a lot of coastal elites talking about the flyover states, and I'm like, no, man, those are not flyover states. Those are the rock stars of the nation. They are about to become the rock star, carbon biosequestering rock stars, gems of this landmass.
Amazing.
Whether you are at the tip of Florida or from the Carolina coast to the California coast, we are about to build the largest carbon capture food economy in the world right now. And we're going to balance our climate doing it. And then when India does it, and China does it, and Europe does it, and Russia does it, and Australia does it, South Central America does it, all of a sudden, and we got this. I mean, again, I stay out of politics, but since, you know, Modi won again in India, India needs this even more than we do. And so he was so amazing. We basically got the keys to that entire amazing administration to go in and work hand in hand with them. And a lot of the science and the data that we've put together, we learned one big thing. And the study's about to come out, and spent a lot of money on it. When we increase soil organic matter globally by 1%, we will be at zero net carbon.
Wow.
We will eat every molecule of carbon, plus start bringing down that basically that teraton of legacy load of carbon, putting it back in the ground to give us back that natural small water cycle. Because people forget, you know, they think the oceans are the only way that we balance our water cycles. And no, 40% of our water cycle and 40% of our water on the planet comes from what's called the small water cycle. It's actually through transpiration. You know, like we perspirate, plants transpirate.
Yeah.
Transpiration is how we get our small water cycle, which regulates our climate. This is, I say this, like I get so like, people are like, dude, you are bursting with information and excitement because I know the data. I see it.
Yeah.
I know what's coming. It's huge.
What's the data say for how long, the way things are going, and you're saying the future is bright, what's the data say projected wise for things to start turning a corner and us starting seeing more positive change incrementally? So
I would say right now, as we sit here and speak, I just got chills. Looking at the latest data that we have, I would say that we could be at zero net carbon in about 16 years.
Wow.
That's fast. And
Yeah.
I was just talking to Josh Tickell about this on the way here. We should start to see some of the effects from a microclimate balancing aspect within the next 5 to 7. Dude,
It's amazing.
that's huge.
It's amazing.
I mean, this is like, we're talking, I mean, dude, 60 months, that's like a car lease.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, do you feel hopeful? I mean, not to get into politics, but do you feel hopeful that a lot of these regenerative farmers are at least having a seat at the table of these conversations in the past months and hopefully more to come. What's your thoughts on that?
They're going to have a seat at the table. It is unfortunate. I'm not really sure why they put what's her name in there, the seed oil chick.
Yeah.
I'm assuming she's going to really get tamed down because it is such a big business, but it's a toxic business. It's a business that has poisoned our system from the ground up. And even if like Bill Gates was sitting here with me right now, I think it's time. We need to set up a conversation. I mean, obviously this is one of the most brilliant men that's ever walked the planet, but I think it's time to really sort of sit and understand where and how, what his justification is for trying to, seed oils, as we know, are toxic. Mm-hmm. They're toxic and they've changed. I never call out like companies or airlines, but I live in airplanes, right? And I've been commuting a lot back and forth to Europe. So I'm sitting in first class of one of the most premier airlines in the world. I mean, the ticket was so astronomically expensive. A client bought it, not me. And I'm having this unbelievable dinner and I'm exhausted, right? I just took my Calm and I just took my sleep because that's how I regulate my sleep is our absorption company, Calm and Sleep.
Okay, yeah.
And it just was like just starting to kick in. I'm like, all right, I'm going to have a little quick snack. And I go to put the salad dressing on this beautiful frisee salad with like French goat cheese on it. Mm-hmm. And I flip it around and the first ingredient is rapeseed oil. Yeah. And I'm like,
canola oil. Yeah.
In the actual hell. I just took off from one of the most sophisticated countries in the world on one of the most sophisticated piece of aircraft on the planet. What is happening? And that's when you realize it clicks. You're like, no one is above this.
Yeah.
Everyone is affected.
Right.
We have poisoned our systems. So now I think once people get out of that and they realize canola oil, rapeseed oil, it's toxic and we don't need it. And people like you, brother, you and people like our dear brother, Dr. Mark Hyman, and like you guys are bringing this to the world with enormous amounts of criticism from people trying to cut you down and say that you're wrong and you're full of shit. And, like you're some crazy, like liberal tree hugging, like don't know your ass from a hole in the ground. You're like, no, man, I'm a doctor. I research. I'm a physician in a way that you can't even imagine. You guys are bringing this to the forefront. I am hopeful. Well, obviously, a lot of people are upset. A lot of people are divided. I firmly believe with steadfast conviction that when we bring the health of soil back and we bring the health of the human body back, our human health and our mental health will follow.
Yeah.
And our governmental systems will be, again, controlled by the people, not the other way around.
Yes.
Right now, it's from the top down. It should be from the bottom up.
Yeah. It's the truth, man.
That's, and a lot of, again, people are really up in arms a lot about all this. And I stand behind that notion.
Yeah. And like you said, this involves people. It's going to be imperfect. We're not going to agree on everything. And right. I think that's, if you know anything about the history of this country, no one ever agreed on everything. It's okay, but we got stuff done historically and we can be a part of some positive change.
Right. We're not going to agree on everything.
Yeah.
We come from different ways and walks of life. But also, too, once we start infusing a lot of that indigenous nature back into our systems, where Black, brown, indigenous, and old world concepts start finding their way back to the forefront, and you realize everyone is healthy, healthier, everyone's making money. Whew, that's crazy. Our communities are stronger. They're more, this is all about building resilience, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot to go back in history, which you can't find in school books, and go look back and things like, the Tulsa, the Tulsa massacres and stuff, to realize why people are wildly uncomfortable with minorities and indigenous people becoming successful. Mm-hmm. This was an unbelievably successful, thriving community of people who worked together to build these incredible integrated regenerative systems, and they were thriving.
Yeah.
And
Well,
they
like you
had to
said,
get squashed.
yeah, we decimated the middle class of every race in this country, especially black and brown people. My friend,
But that's about to change.
That's going to change. My friend, this has been a blessing. Before you go, I want to, the podcast is called The Art of Being Well. At the end of every episode, we have your art of being well. The first question is, what is the worst tasting healthy food that you eat? It's not for the taste, it's for the health benefits.
She legit. She legit to quit. That shit tastes horrible. It makes me like squirm, but that level of fulvic is like, I don't know, you can't argue with it.
That level of fulvic. That's going to be the title of this episode. That's everything. That's good. Okay, next question is, you kind of mentioned it, but what are your 2 non-negotiable supplements that you take?
Non-negotiables. I mean, listen, right now we're in the infancy of our building of the Absorption company, but my non-negotiables literally, I mean, throughout the day, we're all taking all sorts of stuff. And at 46, man, my nose is to the grindstone. You can bet your ass. We have the most amazing integrative doctor here. And I get to work with you and Dr. Mark and everyone. You guys are so amazing to me. And believe me, I'm about to start popping and shooting peptides into my ass like every other 46-year-old guy, because I am beat down. But my non-negotiables are throughout the day. I literally, we built our supplement system for me. I built it for me because I need immediate in the morning remineralization, get my, remineralize my body. By that, mid to late morning, I'm popping our energy. And then throughout the day, I'm hitting restore and energy throughout my day. I just am. I live on a really high caffeine, diet, probably 450 to 500 milligrams a day. Not the best. I'm not that model citizen. I'm like everyone else. I'm grinding myself to the bone. I'm just trying to give my body those things I need to feel good. Yeah. And then my non-negotiables are in the evening. I take my Calm as like a nice mocktail to chill out. And then I pop that sleep once I get everybody down, all the emails are sent. And then I'm up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning. I cannot get through my day without what we created. Yeah. And that's why I built the Absorption company. And it is non-negotiable. When I don't have it, is it a crutch? Yeah. And honestly, we started the company by saying like, don't worry. You don't necessarily need us every day. Come as you are. And we're like, no, that's a bunch of BS. I don't function without it every day. And most of the people I talk to don't function without it every day. So those are my non-negotiables. I got to have it.
Love it. What is the weirdest or most out of the box thing you've done for your wellness that you're willing to admit on a podcast?
The most I've done some pretty weird stuff.
Let's talk about it.
I think one of the things that is so like people are so uncomfortable talking about it, but really it's just like such an amazing part of life, is colonics. You see some unbelievable stuff. And I think right now we are, because our systems are so overrun, we're living in a very sympathetic nervous system, parasitic environment. A lot of people have so many parasites that they don't even know what to do with themselves. And they don't even know they're there, but they're robbing us of these really crucial nutrients. And I spent a lot of time traveling in South America and Asia and Africa. And one of the things that allowed me to help clear a lot of this stuff out was doing very robust, long-term colonics, but in, hey, listen, this is how many we're going to do over the course of this year. We're going to blast through these and we're going to really pay attention to the progress.
You're just perpetually hooked up to a colonic machine for like months.
I am right now. You just don't know it. Watch. See this? See this cord right here? It's a hidden.
That's how wellness Ian is.
That's how wellness I am. And I plugged it into your system, Dr. Will Cole.
That's right. Thanks for that.
Yeah, man, you got to analyze it. But I think that's one of the things that like people are so uncomfortable with. And here's what I say: get in it, do it. Like it changes your life. It really does. And they're just the science is in.
Yeah,
It
we
really,
normalize poop and gut health on the podcast. So you're speaking to the tribe.
Yep, an amazing tribe. And so, but this tribe, because we're all part of the same tribe,
Yeah.
we get to go out and talk to a lot of other people that are maybe not in this tribe, but part of our families or our
Yes.
friend groups or our social groups, or
Right.
whether it's our kids' soccer teams or whatever, or parents. And that's how this spreads.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, normalize poop, normalize digestion, normalize colonics. We're not asking to like legalize, like Class A drugs. We're just talking about just,
Some basic stuff. Just we want to have good gut health. So that's it. That's it. Before you
sure.
go, I have some team members. I record the podcast in between telehealth patients, and I have some massive Vampire Diary fans on my team. They said, you have to ask him at least one question. So what was you recorded that for a long time. You filmed that for a long time. I looked at this prior to us talking today. What was your favorite, like, off-screen memory of that time?
8 years we did this, man.
Crazy.
And so what's wild is, and I know studios and stuff don't like us to have these numbers, but the show's been seen by 1.2 billion people.
Man, that's crazy.
So you're thinking 1 in 8 people on the planet have somehow interfaced with this IP and seen it and been affected by it.
Yeah.
And one of the most amazing off-screen moments, gosh, I've had a bunch of them. I've gotten to sit with presidents and heads of states, and it was just, you're running from like ghosts and vampires and stuff, and then you cut and everyone's full of blood, and then someone makes a fart joke and 140 people erupt in laughter, right? Those moments happen like every day. Some of the most amazing moments that happened off screen were like, spending time with like Richard Branson, talking about changing the world through business and entertainment, and working with literal presidents to help guide them in how to communicate to young people within not their constituency, their countries, and having these calls like, sir, guys, I am so sorry. They just started rolling and I've got to have all my blood refreshed. I'm so sorry. I got to call you back. Like, the president of the studio's here. I can't, like getting off of like an old Zoom on like on a big Apple camera with like a president of a country to go run and shoot a scene where I'm crying over like a, 18-year-old vampire girl or something. I mean, it's like just wild stuff that was unbelievable. And it's so wild. Like, I don't have a college degree. I never even got to go to college. And what I learned and realized was that I could leverage entertainment value to create quantifiable global change in the environment space and in the nutrition supplement space.
Yeah. And you've done that. You have done that.
Well, and I appreciate it. Well, we're doing it. We're in the process. And so thank you, brother,
You're welcome.
for doing what you do. And thank you to your team. I love you guys, you people. I mean, guys, collectively, I love you people for doing this. And this tribe, we get to share this with a lot of people that don't necessarily see this show.
Yeah.
And we get to share this with your tribe. A lot of people that necessarily didn't see Vampire Diaries, but they had to listen to it because their kids were watching it when they were in high school. I have so many dads who are doctors that come up to me and they go, hey man, I'm so grateful that you're in this nutrition space. But dude, I got to tell you, for 4-5 years of my life when my kids were in high school, I hated you. I'm so sick of hearing you. I had President Obama come up to me and say, hey man, I am the leader of the free world. And the only time I can't talk to my own kids is when they're watching your damn show in this place called the White House.
That's
and so
amazing.
like, yeah, so you see how powerful that is. Well, that's the power of family, and kids as parents will do anything for our children.
Yeah.
So now it's time for us to do anything for our children.
What do you think the secret was? Like, why was the show as successful as it was? Is it just right place, right time, or
Right place, right time.
Yeah.
Right place, right time. Twilight had become so successful. It's so wild. My wife was one of the stars of Twilight.
I was going to say, you and Nikki were vampires that became married in real life.
I mean, blending those two, you had the biggest vampire film franchise, and then the biggest, on-screen television episodic one. Because, like, look, man, in 2009, Twilight was huge. That's what gave us our green light. But 13-year-olds couldn't go to the movie theater every day to watch this, or every Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And True Blood, Alan Ball, one of my heroes as far as storytelling, a freshman in high school couldn't sit with their parents on a Thursday night and watch True Blood. Mm-hmm. That would get really weird. So this was the big commercial, but yet nuanced storytelling that was like a kind of coming of age story. But in that time period, this was before Instagram stories and lives, and before TikTok, and all of our brains just turned into pancake batter. People gathered around the TV to watch something that meant something to them. And it closed this parental loophole where kids could bond with their parents without having any arguments. It was a level playing field, and it was magic. Now, 1 in 8 people walking the planet have seen this piece of story.
Yeah.
And it's allowed me to bring it to millions and millions and millions of people. And so I'm super grateful to you for listening to my story and helping us spread the word of Kiss the Ground and Common Ground and the Absorption Company.
Thanks, man.
Without people like you, we couldn't do it.
Well, hey, this has been a blessing of a conversation. I knew it would be. Where do people go to learn about all the things we've talked about in today's episode?
So thank you, brother. So April 22nd is the global watch party for Common Ground on Amazon Prime. Thank you, Mr. Bezos and your team. Freaking love you people.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff. We're on first name basis now. And so you can go to commongroundfilm.org or kissthegroundfilm.com. Just watch the trailers. It sounds so 21st century. You can see the trailer even on my Instagram, but just watch the trailer for these films. But more so, just go to Amazon on April 22nd. And if you can't do it April 22nd, do it the 23rd, 24th, 25th. Just do it at some point, because you will have your life changed. And you will feel what it's like for the first time probably to not just have hope, but to know the hope has action. Mm-hmm. And that is that big aha moment where you're like, wow. I have parents come up to me that say, my kid was going to go to Wharton like his dad and go work on Wall Street. And now this kid is just changed his major. He's now going to go to Texas A&M and he wants to be an agricultural engineer. And, my grandparents were farmers, and that's where all the family money came from. And he's like, screw that, I'm going back to my roots. I mean, dude, this is something we are changing. And this happened with ISF when I did the Ian Somerhalder Foundation. We're changing lives. Mm-hmm. Kiss the Ground touched 1 billion people, helped get $20 billion from the government. Common Ground is going to shape and shift and help build $1 trillion global carbon capture food economy. Literally, end of story. You can't stop it. Here we go. Groundswell, the third movie, 10 countries. We're going to show the global side of regenerative agriculture and how it helps everyone. And you can't vote your way out of it. Pharmaceutical companies and agrochemical companies can't buy their way in to shut it down. It's just too big. Mm. So here we go, man.
Here we go.
Here we go.
The new age is here, my friend. Thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you, brother. I love and appreciate you, man.